Serafina. Tonight's story is a bit different. It's about understanding how decisions made at the highest levels trickle down to affect our daily lives. We'll explore the real numbers behind policies and how they manifest in the experiences of individuals and communities. So let's take a deep breath together, settle in, and begin. Let me tell you about a town, a quiet, ordinary place where people lived, worked, raised families, and built their lives. It wasn't perfect, no place ever is, but it functioned, sustained by the public services that supported its residents. Then one day, things changed. The change didn't come as a storm, sudden and fierce. No, it came quietly, like a slow leak in a roof, barely noticeable at first, until one day the whole ceiling collapses. It began with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. This legislation introduced significant tax reductions, particularly benefiting corporations and high-income individuals. The act was projected to lower taxes by an average of $1,600 in 2018 and 2025, with the top 20% of Americans by income expected to receive approximately 65% of the tax savings. Conversely, the bottom 80% of taxpayers were anticipated to receive 35% of the benefit in 2018, decreasing to none by 2027, with some groups potentially incurring costs. While these tax cuts were designed to stimulate economic growth, they also led to a substantial decrease in federal revenue. In fiscal year 2018, the budget deficit rose from $666 billion in the previous year to $779 billion, an increase of $113 billion, or 17%. This was primarily due to a significant reduction in corporate tax receipts, which fell by $92 billion, or 31% in 2018, dropping from 1.5% of GDP to 1.0% of GDP. To offset these deficits, discussions emerged about reducing funding for essential public services. The Congressional Budget Office confirmed that achieving the proposed $1.5 trillion in cuts over the next decade would be impossible without affecting healthcare programs like Medicare, Medicaid, or the Children's Health Insurance Program, CAIP. In our town, these numbers weren't just figures on a page. They translated into real-life consequences. They were the single mother who relied on public child care, now facing long wait lists because funding had been cut. They were the retired couple who had always depended on their community clinic, now forced to drive hours for basic care because local services had been consolidated. They were the teacher who had already been stretched too thin, now told that class sizes would increase again, that resources would have to be reallocated, and that there was simply no room in the budget. And yet, while programs disappeared and services shrank, something else was happening. The tax cuts resulted in significant savings for corporations and the wealthy. In 2018, more than 90 Fortune 500 companies paid an effective federal tax rate of 0% or less, benefiting substantially from the new tax legislation. In that quiet town, the distance between those who made decisions and those who lived with them grew wider and wider. People whispered at first, "Surely they must see what's happening. Surely they must notice." But the truth is, those who live above rarely hear the voices below. and the town, like so many towns, was left to make do. Neighbors helping neighbors, teachers buying supplies out of pocket, families stretching meals, stretching gas, stretching themselves thin, because what choice did they have? The ones who made the decisions would say it wasn't personal, just policy, just balance sheets and projections and economic forecasts. But to the people in the town, it was very personal, because it always is. So now, my dear listener, I leave this story with you, not as a lesson from the past, not as something distant and long forgotten, but as something here, now, happening in the world we share. Think about the numbers, the decisions, the policies that become real in the lives of ordinary people. Not all stories have an ending yet. Some are still being written, and maybe, just maybe, this is one of them. Good night.